Love, laughter, and the gentle cry of a newborn. That's how this beautiful story begins. In today's episode, we witness Toan and Diem's journey as they celebrate the 1 month milestone of their precious daughter, baby Annie. From the early morning preparations filled with warmth to the heartfelt moments with family and friends, and finally, the magical night under sparkling lights. Every second captures the essence of love and family. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our channel for more emotional family stories like this. Now, let's step into Annie's unforgettable celebration. The morning sunlight spilled gently into the living room, brushing across the white curtains and filling the house with a soft golden glow. Today was not an ordinary day. It was the 1 month celebration of baby Annie, the precious little angel who had changed everything for Toan and Zim. The sweet scent of fresh flowers blended with the soft hum of music, making the air feel almost magical. Theon stood in front of the mirror, her long hair cascading over her shoulders, a tender smile playing on her lips. She wore a pastel pink dress that highlighted her gentle beauty, a beauty that had deepened since motherhood. In her arms was Annie, sleeping soundly in a white lace blanket, her tiny chest rising and falling in peaceful rhythm. Theon leaned down to kiss her daughter's forehead, whispering, "Happy 1 month birthday, my little star." Downstairs, Toan was busy making sure everything was perfect. He moved between the dining area and the garden, adjusting the floral arrangements, checking the speakers, and greeting the decorators with his usual calm but joyful energy. He had never imagined himself as a man who would get excited over balloons and cake decorations. Yet today, he couldn't stop smiling. Every detail mattered, because this wasn't just a party. It was a celebration of love, of resilience, of the family they had built together. In the center of the garden stood a large white canopy draped with fairy lights. Beneath it, tables were covered in ivory linen, topped with bouquets of white baby's breath and roses. A big banner read, "Happy 1 month baby Annie." The pastel tones of peach and blush created a soft, dreamlike atmosphere, just the way Theon had envisioned. When Toan finally walked back into the living room, he saw Theon holding Annie and giving last-minute instructions to the caterers. For a moment, he stopped and simply watched. The way sunlight touched her face, the calm patience in her voice, the tender way she adjusted the baby's blanket. Everything about her seemed radiant. He thought back to those sleepless nights, to her tears of exhaustion and worry, and felt a surge of gratitude. Quietly stepping closer, he wrapped his arm around her waist and whispered, "You've done so much, Theon. Today, we celebrate you too." Theon turned to him, eyes glistening with affection. She said, "We did this together. She's our miracle." Outside, laughter from their friends and family began to fill the air as the first guests arrived. Toan and Theon exchanged a knowing glance, a silent promise that no matter what life would bring, they would always find their way back to this warmth, this joy, this little piece of heaven they had created together. The house that once echoed only with quiet footsteps now overflowed with love and laughter. In the middle of it all, baby Annie stirred, letting out a soft coo, as if she too could feel that today she was the heart of something truly beautiful. The sound of cheerful voices and clinking glasses began to fill the garden as guests arrived one by one, carrying gifts wrapped in soft pastel paper and smiles full of warmth. The air was fragrant with the scent of roses and vanilla cupcakes, mingling perfectly with the light afternoon breeze. Toan greeted everyone with genuine delight, shaking hands and thanking them for coming. Yet, every now and then, his gaze wandered toward the house, where Diem stood with baby Annie in her arms, like a portrait of serenity and love. When Diem finally stepped into the garden, all conversation seemed to pause for a moment. She was radiant, glowing with the quiet pride of a new mother. The sunlight caught in her hair, and her pink dress swayed gently as she walked. Everyone turned to admire little Annie, wrapped in her lace blanket, eyes blinking curiously at the world for the first time. "She looks just like her father," one guest said with a laugh. Another added, No, she has her mother's smile." Diem laughed softly, her eyes sparkling. "Maybe a little of both," she said, glancing lovingly at Toan. He smiled back, his heart swelling with affection. In that fleeting moment, he realized how complete his life had become, how every challenge, every late night at work, every worry had led to this single perfect day. The photographer called out for everyone to gather. Toan stood behind Diem, one hand on her shoulder, the other gently supporting Annie's tiny back. The shutter clicked, capturing not just an image, but a memory, one they would look back on for years, a frozen moment of bliss and unity. As the afternoon sun dipped lower, soft music began to play. Friends and relatives mingled, laughing over shared stories, while children ran across the garden chasing bubbles. Diem took a deep breath, soaking in the beauty of it all, the laughter, the love, the soft hum of conversation that seemed to wrap around her like a comforting embrace. Then Toan appeared beside her, holding 2 glasses of sparkling cider. "For us," he said, handing her one, "to love, to family, and to our little miracle." Diem clinked her glasses against his, her voice barely above a whisper, "To our forever." They stood there together, watching Annie as she slept peacefully in her cradle, surrounded by white flowers and ribbons. For a moment, it felt like time itself had slowed down, giving them the space to breathe, to feel, to simply exist in their happiness. Guests continued to shower Annie with gifts, tiny dresses, soft blankets, silver bracelets engraved with her name. Every blessing felt like another thread in the tapestry of love being woven around her. Diem's heart overflowed with gratitude. She turned to Toan, her eyes misty. "She's so loved already," she said. He nodded, squeezing her hand gently. "Because she has your heart, Diem." The sun melted into shades of gold and rose, wrapping the garden in a dreamlike glow. In that light, surrounded by laughter and love, Toan and Diem stood side by side, 2 souls quietly celebrating the life they had created together. As twilight descended, the garden transformed into a sea of gentle lights. Fairy strings shimmered above the tables, casting a warm, golden glow over smiling faces and soft laughter. The air was filled with the faint melody of a piano tune, mingling with the scent of roses and vanilla cream from a large cake at the center of the celebration. It was time for the most anticipated moment, the cake cutting, to mark baby Annie's first full month in this world. Toan stepped forward, cradling Annie in his arms, while Diem stood beside him, her hand resting lightly on his. The crowd gathered closer, phones raised to capture the moment. The baby stirred slightly, blinking up at the glittering lights, as if she too knew something special was happening. Toan chuckled softly, whispering near her tiny ear, "Don't worry, sweetheart. Daddy's got you." His voice was steady, but inside, his heart felt tender and full, almost to the point of breaking. Diem leaned closer, her eyes fixed on the cake, a masterpiece of white frosting and delicate pink flowers, with the words, "Happy 1-month baby Annie," written in graceful cursive. She remembered the long nights of pregnancy, the fear, the exhaustion, and the pain of giving birth. And now, standing here, surrounded by love and laughter, she felt everything had been worth it. Tears welled in her eyes, glimmering under the soft light. Toan noticed and brushed a tear from her cheek. "Hey," he whispered, smiling. "We made it." Diem's lips trembled into a smile. "Yes," she said quietly, "we really did." Together they placed their hands over the knife, the silver blade reflecting the tiny lights above. The guests began to clap and cheer as they gently sliced through the first layer of the cake. The sound of celebration filled the night, cheers, applause, and the faint echo of a baby's coo, as if Annie herself approved. Cameras flashed, laughter rose, and the atmosphere grew warmer, softer, like a living memory being written in real time. Toan handed Annie back to Diem, then wrapped his arm around her, drawing her close. She leaned into his chest, feeling the familiar rhythm of his heartbeat, the same one that had comforted her through so many uncertain days. As the evening continued, friends toasted to love, health, and happiness. Diem thanked each of them with heartfelt sincerity, her voice trembling slightly with emotion. Toan stood quietly beside her, his gaze never straying far from his wife and daughter. For him, no success, no wealth, no achievement could compare to this simple, sacred happiness, the family he had always dreamed of. Later that night, when most of the guests had left, the garden was quiet again. The lights still twinkled softly overhead, and the leftover scent of flowers hung in the air. Toan took Diem's hand and kissed her fingers gently. Annie slipped peacefully in her cradle nearby, the faintest smile curling on her lips. In that stillness, Diem looked up at the stars and whispered, "Thank you for this life, for you, for her." Toan smiled, his voice a low murmur. "This is just the beginning, my love. Our story has only started." And under that endless sky, surrounded by the glow of love and light, the small family of three stood quietly, grateful, complete, and forever bound by a love that would only grow stronger with time.
Xin chào Hello, xin chào tất cả các khán giả của kênh Lý Tu Diem Review. Vậy là câu chuyện của chúng ta ngày hôm nay đã nói về việc Toàn và Lý Tử Diệm đã tổ chức tiệc đầy tháng cho con gái đầu lòng của họ, đó chính là bé Annie. Đó là một buổi tiệc rất là ấm cúng và có sự góp mặt đông đủ của mọi người gồm mẹ Toàn và cả chị Thúy là chị gái của Toàn và Tuấn là người yêu của chị Thúy. Mọi tình tiết hấp dẫn về câu chuyện tình yêu Diễm và Toàn sẽ còn được kể ở các video tiếp theo. Các bạn hãy bấm vào nút subscribe để đăng ký kênh, nhận được thông báo mới nhất về các tập phim sẽ được phát sóng hàng ngày trên kênh nha. Cảm ơn các bạn rất nhiều. Thanks for watching. Bye bye.